How's it going, everybody? NXT Takeover the End review today on the Razman's Reality. First match of the night saw Andre Cien almost make his NXT debut up against the Perfect 10 Ty Dillinger. Almost looked solid in his debut, but it was very quick and very almost like we just barely got a glimpse of the guys. So it'll be interesting to see what the future holds for him in the WWE ring. I know that he is one of the biggest non-WWE names out there right now, or was before last night's debut, so we'll have to wait and see what his future holds. Next up, it was the NXT Tag Team titles on the line with the Revival, Dash and Dawson challenging American Alpha, Gable and Jordan, and in the absolute surprise of the night, the Revival regain the NXT Tag Team Championships, becoming the first ever two-time NXT Tag Team title holders. This was a really big surprise because the storyline leading up to American Alpha finally taking the titles was one of the biggest things NXT had done in recent months. So it was a real big surprise to see that happen, but it became clear that they had plans for American Alpha to be the face opponents for another heel tag team, as after the match was over, a mystery team, and I do mean a mystery team because these are two guys that WWE clearly signed with no indication of their independent background, at least as far as I know. If I'm wrong about that, I will of course correct it at a later date. But I've never seen these guys before. Corey Graves and Tom Phillips played it off as though they didn't know who they were, so they were a complete mystery to me as to who they were. They were wearing Braun Strowman-like gear, which is a strike against them. But they came in, they laid a beat down on Alpha, and then all of a sudden, Paul Ellering appears. Yes, that Paul Ellering, the same guy that is the Hall of Fame manager, most notably of the Legion of Doom, otherwise known as the Road Warriors, aka also Hawk and Animal. So, very, very surprising. First time we've ever seen a Hall of Famer inside the NXT arena at Full Sail. Besides, Dusty Rhodes, who was the general manager there for a long time. So, very, very surprising move here by NXT. We'll have to wait and see where this leads to. Next up, it was the match that the whole world was talking about. The match that was clearly going to be the match of the night. It was Shinsuke Nakamura taking on Austin Aries, the King of Strong Style, versus the self-proclaimed greatest man that ever lived. This thing was phenomenal. It was back and forth, back and forth. I was literally speechless at the end of this match. I was physically exhausted. This was just as good as Nakamura versus Zayn from the last Takeover special before WrestleMania. So if you're going to watch NXT Takeover the End for anything, watch it for this match. Incredible match. And I fully expect Shinsuke Nakamura to be the next person to challenge for the NXT title. It just makes complete sense. And by the way, I almost forgot to mention it, but Nakamura beats Aries in the match. Next up, the NXT Women's Championship. Asuka defending against Nia Jax. Asuka retains, which is not a real surprise. The surprise here in this match to me was Nia Jax actually looking fairly good. I am not a big fan of her character, still am not. Nothing happened last night to change that for me, but I was really impressed by how strong she looked in the match. I don't know how much of it was Asuka carrying her and how much of it was her really growing as a performer. I think it was probably a lot more to do with Asuka and a lot less to do with Nia, but I'm willing to give her more benefit of the doubt going forward if they start to book her character a little bit better and make it more entertaining. So very solid match. Was very impressed by this match. Didn't think I would be. Asuka retains. And finally, in the main event of the evening, the end, hence the name, Samoa Joe defending the NXT Championship against Finn Balor for the first time in NXT history that any match takes place inside the 15-foot high steel cage. This match was brutal. It was fantastic. It showcased what both guys could do, and Finn Balor really impressed me given that the news came out very surprisingly, because it's something I didn't notice having watched his whole entire indie career, and I don't know many other people that did, but this was his first ever steel cage match of his career, period. So, very, very solid match. I loved Finn's demon makeup in the match. I loved him coming out of the mini cage in the entrance. His entrances are always such a spectacle. The only other guy that comes close is, of course, Shinsuke Nakamura. But I loved everything about the match. And in this one, Finn Balor came so close on so many occasions to regaining the title. So it was clearly about Samoa Joe surviving, quote-unquote, Finn Balor instead of the other way around, like it's been in the last two matches in this feud. The second of which, out of the last two, that Joe actually took the title from Finn in Lowell, Massachusetts. So, Finn Balor looking very strong. I absolutely 100% believe now, more than ever, that this match will signal him coming to the main roster. It'll just be interesting how they do it, whether he's feuding with AJ Styles and Bullet Club or whether he joins them, and when they decide to do that. Do they decide to do it as part of the brand extension move in July, or do they do it sooner? So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But overall, I give NXT Takeover the End a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Was definitely not the strongest Takeover show of all time. It was probably the weakest they've done in a long time overall, but it was very solid and a very good way to close out a lot of these great storylines that have been happening in NXT and start some more exciting new ones. You let me know what you thought about the end down below in the description box or via social media. If you'd like to financially support the Razman's Reality YouTube channel, you can obtain my PayPal information by private messaging me here on YouTube or via social media. Thanks as always to my financial backers, Burge, O'Dan, and Jan, whose support is greatly appreciated. All donations, no matter how big or small, go directly into the Razman's Reality to make it a better show for all of you. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.